What is up, you amazing LU fans? How are you doing today? We got some big news in the last couple of days. In case you haven't heard, but I don't know how you couldn't have, USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. Which, if you don't think that's nuts, you need to get your head examined, because this is crazy. Personally, I'm not a fan of this. I understand that conferences were moving towards super conferences, and it was inevitable. The money situation means that this is going to happen. The conferences want their money. College football is about money at the end of the day. We all know that. We don't like to admit that, but it is. So this was inevitable. And the process has finally begun. This means that this has set the precedent that conferences are literally not restricted by region at all anymore. Because, I mean, have you seen the distance between USC and Rutgers? Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, conferences are no longer restricted at all by geography. And as someone on Twitter said, I don't remember who said it, but the most comical thing in the world is if this all ends with somehow Hawaii in the ACC. That would be hilarious. Is it going to happen? No. Would I be here for it? Absolutely. So, I guess the first question is the Pac-12 still going to be Power 5 or at least survive? I would say no. I think we are witnessing the end of the Pac-12. At very least, they're not going to be Power 5 anymore. They might survive, but there's no way they're Power 5 anymore. But I think they're going the way of the Big East. They are going to dissolve, at least on a football level, and most likely on all levels, in my opinion. If they're going to survive, I see two teams that they could add. They could add San Diego State and Boise State. I think those would be very obvious ones to add. Boise State, as we all know, is one of the most prestigious group of 5 teams for 20 years now. And San Diego State, I mean, it's right there. It's basically Pac-12 already anyhow. Just bring them in. But the problem is we have 2 reporters saying that Oregon is going to the Big Ten, or that so LaMike Black reported the same night that we all heard the news that USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. LaMike Black reported that Oregon and Washington have applied for the Big Ten. Jeff Erman has reported that the Big Ten want to add Notre Dame and Oregon. So we have 2 reporters saying Oregon, one saying Notre Dame, and one saying Washington. Now, if I was to say out of Notre Dame and Washington who the Big Ten would rather have, I think that's fairly obvious. They would rather have the Notre Dame. Notre Dame has rivalries with tons of Big Ten schools. If Notre Dame football was to ever join a conference, I mean, the Big Ten is perfect for them. First of all, I know I just said we're not restricted by region, but they're right there. That's still a factor, somewhat of a factor. It's not 100% a factor, but it's somewhat one in teams and conferences' decisions, I'm sure. How could it not be? Travel is expensive. That's why you see the USFL, the new startup spring league, only had a hub city and nobody played in their home city, because travel is the most expensive part until you get to you get to very large numbers in terms of paying your players and coaches. But for college teams and for high school teams, travel is the most expensive part in general. Those plane tickets ain't cheap, nor are those bus rides. So, I think Notre Dame makes sense. And I think if two reporters are saying that Oregon is both pursuing and the Big Ten is pursuing, while I have no insider information, just based on the situation, what's going on, I would expect a second announcement from Oregon or the Big Ten within the next week. Now, maybe I'm going to be wrong on that, and I would gladly be wrong, at least about Oregon. Notre Dame, I kind of like that move. I have always said that I'm not a fan of the super conferences, but also it's not. I know some people have said as soon as super conferences are here, I'm out of college football or basketball or college sports in general. I'm not like that. I'm still here. I'm still a big fan regardless, even if I don't like it. But unfortunately, all of us saying we don't like it isn't going to change it, because you all know we're all still going to watch because we're addicted to this sport. So Oregon probably going to go to the Big Ten. Notre Dame, I'd say that's probably highly likely too. I know it sounds crazy because Notre Dame's been independent for tons and tons of history, and that could never happen. Yeah, but we all said that if someone just 3 years ago said to you USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten, you would have laughed at them and said, here's a map. You really think that USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten? Are you crazy? So because of that, I think Notre Dame will go to the Big Ten. Or stay independent. They are not going to join a different conference. It is Big Ten or nothing, and they're going to join a conference. But this means that the SEC, they're going to make moves to balance this. I know they just added Texas and Oklahoma, but that's not going to be enough, because this is the equivalent of when that happened, when we had all the craziness. We're going to have all that craziness again. So I fully expect the SEC is going to react to this. I could see the SEC doing one of three things. They're going to either go after some of the remaining Pac-12 schools. Maybe they go after Washington if Washington doesn't end up in the Big Ten. Because, like I said, geography doesn't mean everything anymore. So maybe they go after Washington. The Pac-12 is definitely dead if Washington is gone, and USC and UCLA, because that would mean there's literally nobody in Pac-12 history left that has ever won a national championship. I mean, how can you call yourself Power 5 at that point? I could see that happening. Maybe poach some of the other teams. Maybe they go after some of the big wigs in the ACC. Now, I'm not promising that, but with everything else that I would have said this will never happen, I can't say that anymore. How crazy would it be if we got a SEC with Alabama and Clemson? They could literally have a guaranteed rivalry game every year. That's a little nuts. Or maybe they go after Miami or Virginia. And I know as LU fans, maybe we don't like the Virginia move as much, or maybe that's just me, but I could definitely see them pursuing Virginia, especially for basketball, which my podcast focuses mostly on football, a little bit of basketball, and that's about it. So I'm more looking at this from a football perspective, but basketball is a factor to these conferences too. Maybe the SEC goes after some Big 12 schools. I could see Baylor, Oklahoma State, or Texas Tech. I think those would be the most logical teams to go after. Now, whether they actually do it, that's another story. But if the ACC or Big 12 are smart, they're not going to lie down and take this. They're going to really, really go hard. Now, the ACC has an advantage as far as somebody else trying to poach their teams. It's my understanding that they have all their teams locked on a media deal until 2036. So for the next 14 years, those teams are locked up there unless they want to pay a hefty fine, which maybe they do. But if they don't, the ACC would be in a good position to go gobble up some teams right now from the dying Pac-12. I also think it'd be smart on the Big 12 to offer a merger of the conferences right now, and I think that would put them in a really good spot. That would definitely force the ACC to kind of go after some group of 5 teams to try and beef up, to try and stay with the other ones if the Big 12 does offer the Pac-12 a merger. I don't know if that'll happen. I can't promise that. Like I said, I cannot promise any of this will happen. I'm just throwing out things that could happen. But I do think it would be very smart for the Big 12 and Pac-12 to merge if both of them would like to survive. Because college football right now, with this move, is a battle between the SEC and the Big Ten. And if someone wants to be in that third spot, which I do foresee with the super conference future, there being 3 super conferences on the Power 3 level. And then I think it'll take much longer, but I think eventually you'll see a group of 3 super conferences. I don't think that's going to happen simultaneously. I think you'll get the Power 3, and then you'll get the group of 3. I think it'll be delayed by probably 5 to 10 years before you see the group of 3 super conferences. But the point being, if the Big 12 wants to fulfill that role, they should offer a merger. Or maybe the ACC offers a merger and they gobble up maybe San Diego State and Boise State, and maybe a couple others, even out the numbers, and they'll divide their divisions into the Western Division and the Eastern Division, and then the champion plays each other, and they don't really have many cross division games. Maybe they have 1 game, maybe 2 on their schedule a year, just to reduce travel a little bit, but they would still be the same conference. I could see something like that going down. But all this to say, what does this mean for Liberty? Where is our beloved team going to end up? Are we going to move? Are we still going to the CUSA? Is something else about to happen? Or maybe the Sun Belt, maybe the American, heck, maybe the MAC. What's going to happen? Well, I'm here to tell you that the CUSA is set. There's going to be no moves. That's it. We're here. I don't think any team is really strong enough or prestigious enough to move up. Maybe I should take that back. I think Liberty is strong enough for a better conference, but we don't have the prestige. Unfortunately, we're just an overlooked program, and it's going to remain that way. And also, we kind of have an uncertain future right now. Our offense is much younger now. We're not even sure who the quarterback is going to be yet. Now, there is a semi-consensus within, the Sea of Red. I don't know if any of you have read the Sea of Red magazine, football preview magazine yet. Highly recommend you do. Go buy that. It is amazing. But the point is, we're still not sure who the quarterback is, or even if they'll remain the quarterback for the rest of the season. I don't think that means we're going to have a losing season. I'll definitely talk about more about how I think this season is going to go in my Sea of Red football magazine episodes. But the point being, Liberty's here to stay in the CUSA. However, I don't expect us to be here for more than 5 to 7 years. If we accomplish what I expect from this program and what I think this program is capable of, which is in the next 5 to 7 years, winning a majority of the conference championship games, winning a bowl game almost every season, we are going to be gone by 2030. I think at that point we will either move to the AAC or the Sun Belt. Pardon me. We're not moving up to Power 5 from here. I can promise you that. But the Conference USA has always historically been a conference for teams that are either moving up or down on the college football hierarchy. I think only 2 original members still remain in the CUSA after all its history. And like I said, that's just kind of because this is the placeholder conference. This is the put up or shut up conference. And I think we can put up. So I predict that by 2030, we will be in the Sun Belt or the American. I could be wrong, but I really don't think I am. And at that point, will the official super conferences be here? I believe yes. Will the super conferences for the group of 5 be here? Maybe. I think they could be in the works, but I don't necessarily know that for sure they will be there. And I think predicting when Liberty can get into the Power 3 at that time is very difficult to predict. But if I had to put a number on it, which inevitably history is going to show me wrong, I know that. So don't think that this is a solid, it's going to happen. But if I had to put a number on when is our door to get into the power conferences, it is a lot later than people expect, and that would be 2045. I think that is the absolute earliest we could get in. And I know no one wants to hear that. I don't want to be 43 when it happens, but realistically, that's what we're looking at. But I'll be here for the ride, and I think it's going to be fun. I really think the whole watching Liberty join the FBS and move up as quickly as we have has been awesome. And I would love to keep moving up quickly, but I also think as you get closer to the Power 5, you also get slowed down, if that makes any sense. Because there's more resistance. There's more you have to prove as you get closer. So that is pretty much everything I have to say about the situation at this time. If we get some more solid news on what's going on with Oregon, Washington, or Notre Dame, and if there's any other major moves or even smaller moves, I may discuss it. Like I said, I don't think that changes Liberty staying in the Conference USA, but it's still college football as a whole, and that still affects us. Even what happens in Hawaii can affect us and our future. So that is all for today. I hope you have a lovely day, and keep on standing the flames.